I'm filling in for Luca, and Dylan and I are going to go through another episode on product management, and he's going to take us through deciding which new features to build. Dylan?
Hi guys, so this is part 3 of our series on product management, and again we'll say thank you to Intercom for giving us the notes and inspiration for learning, and it's been very great resource, and I encourage everyone to check it out on their website. It's free to download their manual. And so yeah, today we're going to be looking at deciding which new features to build. So we were a bit negative last week on when to say no, so now we're going to decide when to say yes.
Okay, perfect.
So yeah, so when it comes to product strategy at Intercom, they find that the jobs to be done framework is an extremely useful methodology for product strategy. It comes from the Harvard Business School, and it's a way of looking at the motivations of customers rather than like traditional marketing techniques where you slice and dice customer segments. The thought behind it is that people don't buy things just because they're part of a certain socioeconomic group. They buy things, or they use a product to solve a problem. If you understand that job, so the jobs to be done, the job that customers are hiring your product, then you can make sure that you can align that product to that job. The feature you should build should be the ones that will help them do that the best.
All right, so it's a little bit more personal.
Yeah, I found this kind of interesting because it's just kind of, maybe traditionally they might think of just trying to, target these blocks of people, but I think it's very true. Not everyone thinks the same way. You really want to be doing things, kind of bring it down to the fundamentals. It's like, oh, people have a problem, like we can fix it.
Perfect. Okay.
And so making things people want. So it sounds easy, but maybe it's not that so straightforward. So when you're building or managing a new product, you have to believe that you can create a better solution that people will want to use because it delivers a better outcome for them. So a strong understanding of outcomes that consumers want and how they currently get it is essential if you want to succeed in product management. Focusing on outcome rather than category, industry, product type, it lets you understand your real competitors. For the second, if the second a company focuses on the industry it's in rather than the outcome it delivers, it loses touch, and shortly after it loses customers. There's a reason why Netflix says its biggest competitor is sleep, because it's not in the streaming movie industry, it's in the attention. Yeah, so I found that interesting.
Yeah, it really is. I suppose it's a matter of really dissecting what the problem is and being able to address that and seeing where the gaps are and what the solutions people are currently being offered.
Yeah, and I definitely realized this when at Sparked AI we are developing around using our video platform to allow particularly sports tech companies to analyze and make use of computer vision in their offerings. And so there's a lot of things you can do with these kind of platforms, so many different features. But if we just focus on video computer vision technologies instead of actually focusing on why do they need to use these technologies, so it's like the solution rather than the way of doing things, if that makes sense.
Yeah, very clear. All right.
So here's just a few ways that Intercom suggests on how you can do this. So making people want involves understanding a long-standing human or business need and then using technology. And what they suggest is either take out steps, so make it possible for more people, or make it possible in more situations. So these are pretty basic ones. For example, the second one usually involves reducing the cost or barriers to using a product so that more people can use it, like expanding the market. For example, 14 years ago, if someone wanted to get their writing online, they'd have to rent a Linux server, download a tar.gz file containing the source code of a blogging engine, blah, 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 upload it. It's it's nowadays you can quickly do these things through these no code platforms. It's just all about having issues or what understanding what people need and then
Mhm.
shortening it. And
Yeah.
yeah.
It speaks very thoroughly to this idea in psychology where you have to reduce the friction. Sometimes it's not a matter of people having to decide to do this one thing, but if they want to do this one thing, they have to take a number of active steps.
Mm.
There was a study done before where a lot of people would actually donate their organs if only the system was an opt out, where you don't have to
Ah,
opt in to be, yeah, where everybody's registered as a donor and then the donations would just go up because it's easier. So, yeah, in a similar way.
yeah, definitely. And I think it was Jeff Bezos who says
Hmm.
famously, he said, focus on things that don't change. So when you're coming up with a new product, it's easier to make things that people want rather than
Hmm.
what than to make people want things, if that makes sense. So you have your problem, you know what you want. It's like just give it to them, you know. Don't be trying to make them want other things. You know what I mean? I think we're pretty basic, consumers, clients, businesses to business. It's like these things don't really change. It's just how we develop these solutions. That's what changes, and that's where the value lies from a company like us.
Yeah, it's a very interesting point because there's this buzz around innovation that you always want to be creating something new, but
Mm.
quite often innovation is not necessarily creating something new, but figuring out a better way to do something that's much easier for the consumers and for the market to like just take in.
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
And so this is very useful if anyone wants to look at Intercom's manual because they give a quick little acid test for new features. So although we're happy that we're thinking about new features, we have to make sure that all of these boxes are ticked. So not a single one can be left that you can say no to, and then you can know maybe you can move on with it. So these are very varied. So does it fit your
Hmm.
vision? So is it going to be like, are you making sure that you're continuing on what you started doing? Because it can be very messy. If it succeeds, can you support it? These are very basic steps, but you'd be surprised how many people Intercom says don't think about these things. And you know, there's a huge statistic about failed features, failed products, failed all these things. It's like if people just put some more effort into thinking about these basic questions, then maybe some of these tragedies of product management could go averted.
Right. So I would imagine big companies are using this. Do you have any examples for us?
Yeah. So, well, I think it was putting me on the spot here, Michelle. I love it.
Sorry.
I think so. For will it still matter in 5 years? Can be very difficult for a lot of businesses to compete with, especially nowadays when it's very hard to consider what will be the next big thing. I
Hmm.
think focusing, as we were saying before, focusing on things that don't change. What are the major problems people have? So a company like Tesla going into not just making electric cars,
Mm.
will it matter? Like with climate change and everything like that, of course it's going to matter. These are very important things. So it's only going to keep mattering, if that makes sense. Or like on the opposite side of that, so say if you wanted to start um, making systems for coal plants. You know, that's like maybe it won't matter in 5 years. So it's just a quick example, but I hope that demonstrates the point well enough for people.
Yeah, no, quite well. Definitely places a lot of emphasis on the foresight that you really need to have done the research for it, even on the like basic things.
Yeah. Okay. So it can be very tempting to excuse occasional violations of this list. As I was saying, they must all have a tick beside them. Because assuming that as long as it's right most of the time, or it'll be fine, or it'll be grand, it might be true in theory, but in reality, this is software, and like sometimes you have to be very, 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 very precise with what you're doing. This is why we say that product strategy means saying no. Roadmaps are incredibly hard and recognize agonizing trade-offs, but regardless, every good product manager needs a firm checklist for when to say yes and when to say no. If products get bloated from
Hmm.
one lazy decision at a time, no single choice will be made to this thing. It's just it's a long path. It's a long path to a bloated product, and I think we've all kind of to use. It's just very, very important to remember the last episode. I encourage people to watch it on when to say no, because it can be very tempting to, as we discussed last episode, to say yes, but there's a lot of reasons to say no.
I see. And have you any examples of when people have failed to follow this wisdom? Or
no, I do not this time with my examples, but just thinking about it for on our side. So we deal with a lot of computer vision. We are the AI experts over at Sparked AI. And with our computer vision platform, it can be very tempting to just add in like another feature, another thing that we think is good. But it's, even if we think that like all these things are great and it all makes sense, so we have to make sure we go back to our checklist that we just went through. So is it going to be relevant in 5 years? What if we are we're building support for sport which is drastically losing popularity due to one reason or another? So it's just these kind of basic things that we're talking about, where it might seem like it might be cheap and easy to do, but it's really not, because it takes everyone's time and you have to incorporate it into your decisions later on. It's just really pushing the point that when you're making decisions about your product, you really have to take it seriously and really, really realize that you're probably not going to say yes to like 99% of things. And it can be very helpful, therefore, to have a team and to all be a team of product managers on your product, and to really all keep each other to this line. Like, are we keeping this the most streamlined, the most value for our users? We have to really like consider all these things.
I think an example comes to mind a couple of years ago. I think it was Google. They developed something with like the glasses, right? And there was so much hype around it, and it looked really cool. But then they'd like put so much money into like developing it, but it's not the kind of thing that consumers would wear just like outside. And it flopped. No, do you remember that?
Yeah. So that's a great example, and I think it's and it's just I think the main issue was that a lot of people don't want to be showing a camera in everyone's face because it was recording all the time. And maybe that'll change sometime in the future, but it was probably a big oversight by Google considering the amount of things they put into it. But I'm still confident they'll be able to innovate around it. But it's just the thing there. So if we go back to our list of questions, maybe they could have considered, does it fit the vision? So no pun intended, but is it is it in line with Google's like less stress, all streamlined, the best product? It really like maybe just didn't quite tick that box for me.
On following this example, there's I don't know if you've heard about it yet, but there is a collaboration between Ray-Ban and Facebook. And it's kind of, it's not quite as in-depth what the glasses are, but basically you have like these sunglasses that are developed by Ray-Ban, and it looks like it's okay, right? If you don't look too closely, it doesn't look like it's too heavy. Do you know what I mean? Like it can pass at a distance. And but it is the kind of thing where like you're allowed to like record, you can take pictures like on the spot, and I think you'll be able to see it on your phone, something like this. So it's not as technology intensive, but it does follow like the same line of thought. So I'm kind of wondering if it will actually work this time around.
Yeah, definitely. I think just having engineers break into the fashion industry maybe wasn't the best idea, and it's they engineers like to slag these traditional industries like clothing and these major brands, but they do know what they're doing. They do know what looks nice. They do know what people want, and a lot to be learned, I'd say. Like as we were saying earlier, it's all about focusing on the problem. People don't want to be able to take photos. They want to be able to create memories, and in order to do that, maybe they need to feel comfortable to like throughout. But yeah, I think it's great. I think it's a very cool space to watch how they maneuver these complicated issues, not just technical.
Yeah, there's definitely like a lot of marketing and psychology involved with the consumers.
Yeah, completely agree. Okay, so finally, we're just going to quickly discuss rolling out new features.
Mm-hmm.
And so here I just kind of have the 4 steps that Intercom kind of suggest for when you're rolling a new feature. So these are pretty standard, but it's just a good way so that you are not jumping out of launch, because a bad launch can really damage your company's brand and the product's brand. A lot of people might not even go back to a video game, for example, that launched with a lot of bugs without being properly tested. Then it'll have the stigma attached to it, and it ruins the experience. So here they suggest first doing team testing. So the team that's creating it, they'll use the products, all these things. It's important because it keeps there will be some oversight. You'll never get all the bugs
Mm-hmm.
out, but this way, you won't have like a million people telling you there's this one bug. So it makes sure that the frequent bugs are accounted for. The
Mm-hmm.
next one we suggest is a company testing. So within the company, it's a bigger sample, and you can really maybe do a mock ship. Like, don't tell anyone you're doing it. Don't do any tutorials. Just ship it as if it was not like normal. See what happens. Less people people might be a little bit less willing to shout at you, because if you're in your same company, but you might still get the feedback, which is always nice. Um, the next thing is very important, a restricted beta. So this is essentially where your team believes their feature is complete. It's
Mm-hmm.
released to it's the first time the public are going to see this feature. And so you usually want to use like a single digit percent of the user base, and these can be your trusted customer group. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe people are maybe fans of yours and aren't likely to leave if just one thing goes wrong. During this beta, you can ensure that it's comfortable and discoverable for all users. You can track metrics and usage through these new data dashboards that people have going, and you can resolve barriers to these problems. It's just a nice way to nurture your feature before you send it out into the big rollout phase. And this is when you're going to ship it. This is typically, unfortunately, not all features get to this stage, but when you
Mm-hmm.
do, it is a very easy to just crack open the champagne and enjoy the little work you can do. But really, this is just the start, and maybe we'll talk about this more next week. But
Mm-hmm.
you have to make sure you get your feature announcement right. You're focusing. A lot of times, people might focus on what we did rather than what you can now do, which is a very
Mm-hmm.
important distinction. And if you want people to use your product, you have to encourage them by showing them what they can now achieve. Going back to what we were saying earlier about um, problems and solving them, to make sure that now their problems are easier to be solved. And this is the whole point of products, the whole point about what we're doing.
Right. I just have a little inquiry about the restricted beta. You say that, well, as you've explained it, it feels like it's a safe space, basically, for the product to roll out, at least for a feature to roll out, right? And then you can have like feedback around it. I wonder if that also doesn't have a counterintuitive result, that perhaps it would also be wise to roll it out to some people that aren't as, I don't know, like aren't as keen on the product. Because then I feel like the review would be perhaps a little bit more objective, rather than if you are rolling out like a feature, and if it's Apple, right? So
Mm.
Apple is known for the loyalty of their customers, right? Because there's a brand identity, it's very strong. Now, if you were to roll out that feature to people who already love Apple, yes, they would provide you feedback, but I wonder how that feedback is affected by already like that loyalty that's already there. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, this kind of it's not a bug, it's a feature, or it's the way
Mm.
it's meant to be, kind of ripped jeans effect. Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think it's definitely important. I think when I was saying this, we wouldn't be looking for actual like written reviews on a feature.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be more for just tracking. So these 5 things here. So like, are people able to find it? Are they using it? How long do they use it? How is it being used? Is it popular? So I I see your point, and I think it's very important, maybe before doing the full rollout, to at least talk to people who are maybe new people coming into I think it's very hard to find people that hate your product, but maybe people who
Yeah,
aren't using it a lot, or um,
a bit more agnostic, I would say.
yeah. Yeah, I would say so. I think it's definitely worth, especially for the written, what do you think about this product, or the interview and the
Mhm.
customer is very important.
Grand. Okay, so that brings us to a close. Um, what are the key takeaways you would say for the audience?
Yeah, I would just try to hammer home the fact that we brought to last week as well. I'm sure we're being very negative, but in product management, you have to be very careful. You're walking on ice here. You really need to make sure that your product is what you want it to be. You have to make sure that it's what your clients need. You can't. It's not a place to just throw stuff at the wall. You need to make sure that every single step you have a good framework. And I think Intercom does a great job in explaining how to build their version of a framework. Of course, every company is different. However, I really think it's very useful. I know for us, making sure that we go through these steps has been great for our video computer vision platform, and we've had great reviews from our customers who say that we don't really bring in any features that we don't think are going to be used if we don't think they're going to be valuable, because we want to make sure we deliver a streamlined experience and we deliver solutions rather than demonstrating what products we're able to
Mm,
ship, if that makes sense.
yeah, makes a lot of sense. All right, thank you, Dylan. For those of you watching us, this is our Get in Touch page. You know where to find us. The number is there. Check out our website, and we will see everybody again next week. Yes.
Yes.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Dylan.
Bye.